Although many people interpret Hollywood as being in an almost permanent state of glamour, opulence, and sumptuous displays of newfound wealth, in truth, the peak of Tinseltown's direct influence on the American populace was during the so-called Golden Era, when as much as 60% of Americans flocked to theaters every single week. Furthermore, this Golden Era saw the rise of monumentally famous stars, figures who didn't merely act, but became icons, emulating the lavish lifestyle that movies of the time portrayed. Indeed, these A-listers were institutions in their own right, molding their fame into physical manifestations through grand mansions and seemingly endless estates that dotted Los Angeles. Soon, these homes became symbols of ultimate success and opulence, with sprawling gardens, private pools, and architecture that drew from the furthest reaches of glamour. However, the fairy tale didn't last. As the studio system crumbled and new entertainment mediums like television emerged, the financial underpinnings that supported such grandiose mansions faltered. Consequently, over time, many of these magnificent homes were demolished or repurposed, giving way to modern developments and commercial enterprises, echoing the transient nature of fame and the evolving tastes of a changing America. Today, we feature a poignant look at the lost mansions of Golden Era Hollywood, reminding us of the shifting sands upon which the City of Angels was built. At one point in time, Pickfair stood as the epitome of Hollywood glamour and opulence. Nestled in the heart of Beverly Hills, California, the mansion was more than a home. It was a cultural phenomenon created by film legends Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. With its sprawling grounds, lavish interiors, and a guest list that read like a who's who of the 20th century, Pickfair was Hollywood's unofficial royal palace. But this mansion, once a vibrant hub for the entertainment industry's elite, met an unfortunate end. In 1990, new owners demolished much of the estate, leaving the public and even Hollywood insiders astonished and heartbroken. In today's video at Old Money Mansions, join us as we take you back in time to the absolute zenith of Hollywood glamour during the Golden Age, only to watch how such a lovely home met its unfortunate end as we describe why Hollywood's most opulent mansion was demolished. In the early years of the 1920s, Hollywood had yet to evolve into the sprawling capital of stardom that we recognize today. But it was undeniably on an accelerated trajectory toward that future. Two luminaries, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks, stood at the vanguard, shaping not merely the cinematic landscape, but also defining a lavish way of life that set a benchmark for glamour. Pickford, known as the Queen of the Movies, and Fairbanks, aka the King of Hollywood, were more than just actors. They were co-founders of United Artists, a studio that provided them unparalleled creative control. In fact, their status was such that they became the very first celebrities to leave their handprints in the cement at Grauman's Chinese Theatre, forever imprinting, literally, their significance on Hollywood's history. Indeed, they transcended mere fame to become cultural icons, influencing fashion, social norms, and even politics of their day. Their films broke box office records, and their public appearances drew crowds that numbered in the thousands. Furthermore, their life seemed almost scripted like one of their movies, filled to the brim with drama, romance, and opulence. In order to get the full picture of what we mean, just envision a 15-acre oasis in Beverly Hills, California, where the glow of celebrity radiance was as common as the palm trees that framed the hill line. This sumptuous estate was christened Pickfair, a name derived from the fusion of Pickford and Fairbanks, Hollywood's first power couple, and thus such was their renown that their last names combined to brand their extravagant dwelling. Pickfair was much more than just a celebrity home. It was a symbol, an emblem of Hollywood's burgeoning golden age. Now, to materialize their aspiration for a residence that would captivate the collective imagination, Pickford and Fairbanks enlisted Wallace Neff, an architect celebrated for his innovative Californian designs. Prior to Pickfair, Neff had already made a name for himself with various residential masterpieces like the O'Neill House, also in Beverly Hills, and the Edwin D. Neff House in San Marino, among others, each a showcase of his unique aesthetic that combined Spanish colonial and Mediterranean elements. So, for Pickford, Neff yet again would work his magic to transform an unassuming Spanish colonial revival dwelling into an awe-inspiring mansion filled with grandeur. The home's interior was a study in sophistication, featuring exquisite leaded glass windows, elaborate parquet flooring, and celestial-themed murals adorning the ceilings. Structurally, two elegant wings framed the mansion, complemented by an L-shaped porch and a tasteful copper roof, detailed with ornate ironwork. But Pickfair was, additionally, a realm of lavishness and innovation. Beyond the expected amenities like stables and tennis courts were some unexpected delights: a Western saloon and what was considered the first in-ground pool in Los Angeles. Douglas Fairbanks reportedly even had an underground jogging track for his more private physical endeavors. And Mary Pickford seized the opportunity this paradise provided to conduct a pioneering bikini photoshoot on the premises in 1922. Now, the living room served as the opulent core of the household, adorned with 18th century art and antiques. Items from the collections of Countess Rodesno and Lord Leverhulme added to the grandeur, along with Louis XVI furniture. And Mary Pickford herself seemed to personify tranquility as she sat on a couch covered in sumptuous Chinese damask silk. Their collective interest in international culture also turned their mansion into a museum filled with Asian treasures, such as intricately carved rhinoceros tusks and a silver urn from the King of Siam. And the aesthetic of the mansion remained an ever-evolving canvas, meticulously curated by America's first professional decorator, Elsie de Wolfe, and design virtuoso Tony Duquette. The exterior was equally enchanting. Adorning the property were flourishing orchards and intricately landscaped gardens, a hallmark of opulent Hollywood estates in the 1920s. Cypress and olive trees dotted the landscape, while fragrant blooms of lavender and jasmine infused the air with their intoxicating scent. Fountains and sculptures provided not only visual grandeur, but also an aura of tranquility that was designed to transport visitors into a realm of fantastical beauty. And then, in 1949, against this backdrop of visual and sensory magnificence, Pickford and Fairbanks celebrated yet another pivotal moment in their legendary lives: their wedding. An affair of extraordinary glamour, it was an event befitting Hollywood royalty. The guest list was an assemblage of the era's most luminary figures, including Charlie Chaplin, the Barrymores, and other silver screen legends. Therefore, the ceremony was more than an exchange of vows. It was a celebration that epitomized the very essence of Hollywood sophistication and artistry. In this manner, Pickfair was never a static entity, but rather an evolving symphony of style and taste. However, their wedding was just the tip of the iceberg in a long history of star-studded moments at Pickfair, and there was so much more to come as Hollywood royalty descended on this modern palace-like abode. Indeed, in the roaring 20s, the epicenter of Hollywood's effervescent social scene was unquestionably the Pickfair mansion. Likened to America's Buckingham Palace by none other than Lord Mountbatten, Pickfair transcended being merely a residence. It was a cultural phenomenon. As Beverly Hills Mayor Will Rogers humorously noted, his principal task was essentially directing people to Mary Pickford's house. Now, what made Pickfair an irresistible draw wasn't solely its architectural splendor or its aesthetic grandeur, but its role as a social vortex that attracted a dazzling array of talents and intellects. The estate's dinner parties were the stuff of legend, boasting an enviable guest roster that ranged from cinematic giants like Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd to monumental personalities like Albert Einstein and President Franklin D. Roosevelt. When you walked through the grand entryway, you weren't just stepping into a house. You were entering a circle of influence that extended well beyond the film reels. And in the midst of laughter echoing through gilded halls and crystal glasses clinking in festive toasts, there was an undeniable energy in the air. This was the pulse of a new, burgeoning America, a nation being shaped and represented by Hollywood glamour epitomized by Pickfair. An invitation to this hallowed space was more than just a social courtesy. It was a confirmation that you had earned your place among the influential elite. Yet, like all things subject to the fickleness of time and fortune, the allure of Pickfair would begin to diminish as the 1930s approached. In fact, the decline paralleled the waning film careers of Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. Their once idyllic love story, which had been a cornerstone of Hollywood mythology, eventually disintegrated with their divorce in January 1936, and what had once been a haven for the cultural elite morphed into a haunting relic of a dissolved union. This marital dissolution marked not just the end of a relationship, but signaled the mansion's transition from social hub to a muted echo of its former glory. Though the architecture remained, the vibrant social life that once pulsated through its rooms became a fading memory. While Mary Pickford continued to inhabit the estate with her third husband, Charles "Buddy" Rogers, the vibrancy and social magnetism of Pickfair under her previous marriage never resurfaced. Thus, as the 1930s drew to a close, a palpable stillness replaced the erstwhile buzz of extravagant social gatherings at Pickfair Mansion. The subsequent 1940s saw the iconic estate transform into a haven of solitude for Mary Pickford, who deliberately withdrew from public life following her divorce from Douglas Fairbanks. This transformation was more than a personal decision. It served as a reflective lens, capturing the fading luminance of Hollywood's golden age. Therefore, this period of seclusion was emblematic of more extensive shifts within Hollywood itself. Tinseltown's landscape was morphing. The star system that once reigned supreme was gradually yielding to fresh faces and emerging styles. Mary Pickford, one of the last enduring symbols of the past era, found herself increasingly adrift from a Hollywood undergoing dynamic transformation in the 1950s. The mansion underwent nuanced but meaningful renovations, striking a judicious balance between historic preservation and modern adaptation. Indeed, despite her seclusion, Mary Pickford discerned the imperative to bring her cherished home into a new age. It was as if she aimed to keep the mansion's spirit intact, even as she permitted it the room to evolve and adapt to a changing world. However, little did she know that the next chapter in the Pickfair saga would experience even more architectural drama and heartache, even as the mansion had steadfastly attempted to stay with the times. As the 1960s dawned, Pickfair Mansion found itself navigating the same uncertain waters that were sweeping through Hollywood at large. This period heralded a new chapter of ownership, as Mary Pickford and her third spouse, Buddy Rogers, distanced themselves from Hollywood's buzzing epicenter. The estate's cultural resonance dwindled, but didn't entirely fade away. The 1970s further accelerated the mansion's descent, paralleling the diminishing aura that had once surrounded it. With Mary Pickford's passing in 1979, Pickfair became vacant, transforming into a mute emblem of its past grandeur. The quietude that enveloped the mansion echoed far and wide, resonating through a film industry that had long shifted its focus elsewhere. Sadly, Pickfair was no longer Hollywood's vibrant core. It had become a muted observer to its own rich history. During these years, Pickfair also became the focal point of public auctions, magnetizing a motley crowd of inquisitive spectators, history enthusiasts, and memorabilia collectors. These auctions served as a closing chapter to the era that Pickford personified, signaling the conclusion of Hollywood's most golden epoch. However, surprisingly, the 80s ushered in a renewal, initiated by the acquisition of the mansion by Los Angeles Lakers owner Jerry Buss for a sum of $5.4 million, or roughly equivalent to $20 million today. Initially viewed as merely a savvy real estate investment, the estate soon unveiled its historical weight to its new proprietor. Faced with a dilemma, either demolish the dilapidated structure for fiscal efficiency or invest in its historical restoration, Buss opted for the latter. Throughout the decade, the Buss family capitalized on Pickfair's storied legacy, hosting profitable fundraisers and infusing the estate with a renewed sense of purpose and vitality. For Jerry Buss, and subsequently his daughter Jeannie, the intrinsic value of Pickfair came into sharp focus upon discovering Mary Pickford's Oscar still in place, a mute yet compelling homage to the home's filmic heritage. More than any other element, this unearthing highlighted the estate's invaluable position in the annals of Hollywood history. However, even finding relics such as one of the first Oscar trophies couldn't stop what would happen next. In 1988, the Pickfair estate, a historical nexus of Hollywood glamour, underwent another change of ownership. The new custodians were Israeli tycoon Meshulam Riklis and his spouse, American actress and singer Pia Zadora. Acquiring the estate for $6.7 million, their purchase immediately set off warning signals in the Hollywood circuit and far beyond. Initial declarations about forthcoming renovations quickly yielded to the grim realization that the couple had divergent intentions for the iconic property, and on the 22nd of April 1990 emerged as a date of communal grief for both Hollywood and its chroniclers. On this day, much of the Pickfair mansion was razed, igniting a vehement public backlash. Observers mourned the demolition of a monumental building that had once housed Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and other iconic personas. Douglas Fairbanks Jr. himself publicly expressed his consternation, asking why the couple would purchase the mansion just to dismantle it. Initially, Pia Zadora cited the mansion's dilapidated condition and termite infestation as the main reasons for its destruction. Yet years later, she would divulge an additional rationale, the belief that the estate was haunted. In her defense, the haunting rumors around Pickfair ironically dated back to its original owners themselves, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. The couple reportedly saw the spirit of a female servant multiple times during their time living in the house. Even after Pickford's death, her second husband, Buddy Rogers, claimed to have seen the ghost of a woman in white, whom he believed to be his wife. And according to Pia Zadora, by the time they had arrived, her family experienced strange occurrences, such as Pia's young daughter screaming at night, claiming that a woman was staring at her in the bedroom. Thus, the paranormal activity at Pickfair was said to have played a significant role in the family's decision to level the prominent piece of Hollywood history. Regardless of the actual motives, the leveling of Pickfair signified a jarring detachment from Hollywood's history, effectively cutting off an invaluable cultural and historical artery. Soon enough, the parcel of land that once bore a historical emblem sprouted a new Venetian-style edifice, its modern architecture standing in conspicuous contrast to the original Pickfair's historical allure. While the demolition had already fomented discussions about preservation versus modernization, this newly constructed mansion seemed to amplify those tensions conspicuously. Now serving as a venue for Unicom Global's various professional activities, the new structure embodies a tension between past and present. Despite its state-of-the-art amenities like a gym and disco room, it remains perpetually under the spectral influence of its storied predecessor. Vestiges of the original, such as the gates, kidney-shaped pool, and a two-bedroom guest wing, linger as eloquent reminders of an earlier epoch, subtly challenging the mansion's contemporary grandeur. Therefore, although the original Pickfair no longer exists, its cultural imprint upon Hollywood's collective memory remains deeply etched. Conversations initiated by its destruction continue to echo, compelling us to grapple with intricate dilemmas surrounding the valuation of history versus advancement. On the golden shores of Santa Monica, California, where the waves whispered secrets to the stars, stood a mansion so grand it made the heavens seem within reach. Yet this was not just any mansion. It was a 100-room behemoth of extravagance, a seaside party palace where Hollywood's brightest stars convened for nights of uninhibited revelry. With their laughter echoing like a seductive symphony under the moonlit sky, the so-called beach house played host to scenes that would make the Great Gatsby read like afternoon tea time in a quiet garden. At the heart of this opulent paradise was its queen, actress Marion Davies, a dazzling star in her own right, entwined with the most powerful media mogul of the time, William Randolph Hearst. But their love was not just a romance. It was a creative partnership that gave birth to this architectural wonder. Every inch of the mansion was a love letter to luxury, crafted with an eye for detail so meticulous it bordered on the divine. Yet, in a twist more tragic than Orson Welles' Rosebud moment in Citizen Kane, the classic satire of Hearst and Davies, this monument to glamour and excess met an unfathomable end. As the golden age of Hollywood faded into the shadows of World War II, this iconic home to luxury fell to the cold, unfeeling hand of the market and was turned into a parking lot, of all things. In today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we'll describe how this decision was more than just the demolition of a building for profit. It was the end of a legendary era in the City of Angels and the extinguishing of a light that once burned brightly on the shores of Santa Monica, as we describe. Why Los Angeles' most luxurious mansion was demolished. Born on the 3rd of January 1897 into a close-knit family, Marion Cecilia Doris, who would become the illustrious Marion Davies, early years were a blend of familial warmth and personal challenges. Her father, Bernard J. Duras, a distinguished lawyer and judge, and her mother, Rose Riley, a devoted homemaker, provided a nurturing environment for Marion and her siblings. Despite battling a stutter, Marion's resilient spirit propelled her to leave school and step into the limelight of show business. As a teenager, Marion embarked on her theatrical voyage, joining the ranks of chorus girls. Inspired by her sister Raina, who had adopted the stage name Davies, Marion too embraced this persona, stepping onto Broadway's glittering stages. Her early career saw her star in the 1917 film Runaway Romany, marking the beginning of a dazzling journey in the entertainment industry. Soon thereafter, Marion's fate intertwined with that of William Randolph Hearst, the fabulously wealthy newspaper tycoon, during her stint in the Ziegfeld Follies. Captivated by her charm, Hearst pledged to elevate her to stardom, establishing a production company dedicated to her craft, and under his patronage, Marion flourished, gracing over 45 films with her presence. However, Marion's ascent was not without its shadows. The untimely demise of film producer Thomas Ince at a party on her lover William Randolph Hearst's yacht cast a pall over her career in 1924. Despite this, Marion continued to captivate audiences, becoming a silent film icon. And off the camera, Marion's heart was as golden as her on-screen personas. Her philanthropy, especially towards children's causes and aspiring actors, mirrored the generosity of her spirit. In 1924, her star shone brightest as theatre owners crowned her Queen of the Screen. Now, Marion and William Randolph's shared creative vision soon culminated in brainstorming a grand mansion in Santa Monica in 1926. This architectural marvel, a reflection of their affluence and societal status, was intended to stand as a symbol of their dreams, ambitions, and the love they shared, despite the whispers of scandal and controversy that trailed their union. Thus, in 1926, Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst were poised on the cusp of architectural history as they sought the perfect architect for their Santa Monica mansion. Amidst heightened anticipation, they breathlessly searched for an architectural visionary capable of encapsulating their love, influence, and the golden era of Hollywood in a landmark that would transcend time, and soon enough, they would find one. In the radiant panorama of Santa Monica's architectural landscape, the inception of the Marion Davies mansion in 1926 marked the beginning of a remarkable era. Envisioned as an icon of grandeur and sophistication, its genesis was entrusted to architect Julia Morgan, a luminary in creative design at the time. Morgan, celebrated for shattering glass ceilings in a then predominantly male-dominated field, had an impressive portfolio of over 700 structures. And her design ethos, characterized by meticulous attention and hands-on involvement, set a high bar for architectural excellence. The mansion's patron, William Randolph Hearst, helped choose Morgan for Davies, drawing on their prior collaboration at the illustrious Hearst Castle. The Santa Monica venture was therefore a further embodiment of Hearst's architectural aspirations, mirroring his deep engagement in the creation of his own San Simeon estate. Now Morgan's architectural blueprint was a masterstroke of elegance and opulence, melding a sprawling 100-room mansion with an exquisitely designed marble pool. Without a doubt, this majestic estate was conceived to be the crown jewel of Santa Monica's Gold Coast, a hub for the Hollywood elite and a nexus for social gatherings of the highest order. Next, the groundbreaking in 1927 heralded the construction phase, intertwining Hearst's vision with Morgan's architectural acumen. This collaboration, although fraught with challenges, was a confluence of Hearst's detailed oversight and Morgan's unparalleled focus on precision, culminating in a resplendent symbol of their combined genius. Creatively, the mansion's architectural narrative wove together Art Deco and Mediterranean motifs, playing out a symphony of styles. The interior echoed the splendor of the Art Deco movement, featuring a bespoke nightclub that exuded the era's chic and glamour. In contrast, the exterior resonated with Georgian revival influences, showcasing a balanced amalgamation of classical proportions and ancient Greco-Roman aesthetics. Further, the Mediterranean inspiration was palpable in the mansion's expansive layout, reminiscent of a luxurious villa and strategically positioned on a 5-acre oceanfront plot. And it boasted amenities befitting an empress, over 100 lavish rooms, tennis courts, guest houses, and an ornate marble swimming pool, all resonating with the aura of Hearst's and Davies' distinguished tastes. Now, the interior design, completed in 1929, was a canvas for Davies' preferences, adorned with Tiffany chandeliers and treasures from Hearst's European sojourns. After the completion of the building's construction phase, Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst soon stood on the cusp of unveiling their architectural masterpiece in Santa Monica. The air buzzed with anticipation for the grand opening, a lavish affair set to redefine opulence. Yet, beneath the surface, a question still lingered in their minds. Would the crème de la crème of Santa Monica and Los Angeles embrace the mansion's artistic and cultural splendors, or would their grand vision fall short of the glittering societal expectations? Unveiled with much fanfare in the 1920s by media magnate William Randolph Hearst for actress Marion Davies, the affectionately titled Beach House swiftly became the epicenter of Hollywood's glamorous rendezvous. And Marion Davies, stepping into the mansion, quickly embraced her newfound role as the toast of Hollywood's high society. Indeed, the Beach House, under her stewardship, instantly transformed into a haven for the who's who of Tinseltown. And these gatherings held within these walls were not just parties, they were the epitome of exclusivity and elegance, drawing the crème de la crème from various industries, with Hollywood's brightest stars always in attendance. At the heart of these lavish festivities was the dining room, repurposed as a celebratory sanctum dedicated to the grand soirees hosted by Davies. The walls and windows, adorned with large-scale photographic scrims, served as silent narrators of the high life. They would showcase an array of A-list guests and snapshots of Davies herself, often captured in joyous moments with her beloved Hearst. And during the early 1930s, Santa Monica found itself in a transformative phase. The city, having enjoyed the nationwide prosperity of the 1920s, saw its population more than double from 15,000 to 32,000. However, the Great Depression struck hard, plummeting employment figures to a mere 1,000 by 1933. Through this economic turmoil, the Davies mansion remained an unyielding beacon of festivity and resilience, its parties continuing unabated. And the mansion's influence on Santa Monica's cultural fabric was undeniable. It wasn't just a residence, it was a cultural icon, instrumental in cementing the city's reputation as a gathering place for the affluent and famous. Thus, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over Santa Monica, the Marion Davies mansion stood poised on the brink of an era that would etch its name in the annals of Hollywood history. Behind its grand facade, preparations were underway for a series of soirees that would redefine luxury and extravagance. Nestled along the sun-drenched shores of Santa Monica, the Marion Davies Santa Monica Mansion, or simply the Beach House, stood as a symbol of opulence and social magnetism in the 1930s. This magnificent estate, with its sprawling grounds and palatial architecture, played host to the era's most illustrious figures, creating a vibrant tapestry of glamour and festivity against the backdrop of Hollywood's golden age. At the heart of this grandeur was, of course, Marion Davies, whose charisma and hospitality knew no bounds. The Beach House became the epicenter of high society, frequented by the likes of Charlie Chaplin, Louis B. Mayer, Samuel Goldwyn, Greta Garbo, and Clark Gable. And these were not mere social gatherings, but elaborate spectacles, where each event outshone the last. Davies's legendary costume parties, particularly, became synonymous with Hollywood's elite extravagance. Yet, the Beach House's allure extended beyond its grand parties. During the tumultuous years of the Great Depression, Davies transformed her home into a sanctuary for those in the film industry facing hardship. Her altruistic spirit shone brightly as she offered meals and aid, often discreetly handing off jewelry and cash to her less fortunate guests. This act of generosity not only solidified the Beach House's status within the community, but also showcased Davies's caring and considerate nature. Therefore, the architectural splendor of the Beach House, combined with Davies's innate flair for hospitality, rendered the mansion a beacon of hope and unity. Her gatherings transcended mere social frivolity. They fostered a sense of camaraderie and support during an era marked by economic and social upheaval. Thus, by the late 1930s, the Beach House had earned the moniker Versailles of Hollywood, a fitting tribute to its cultural and historical significance. And Davies's personal life, particularly her long-standing relationship with William Randolph Hearst, added another layer to the mansion's narrative. Despite the complexities of their liaison, such as Hearst being married the entire time, their bond endured until his passing in 1951. Therefore, Marion Davies, much more than just Hearst's companion, was a pivotal figure in the social fabric of Hollywood. Her hosting prowess extended from the grandiose Hearst Castle to the serene beach house, each party a lavish affair attended by the era's most celebrated personalities, from film stars to international dignitaries. However, in the next decade, the even more volatile 1940s, both Marion's life and the fate of the illustrious beach house would be pushed to their absolute breaking points. Now, in the 1940s, much like the rest of the world, Santa Monica's landscape was undergoing a profound transformation. The advent of World War II cast a shadow over the earlier period of extravagance in Golden Age Hollywood. The global conflict, marked by events like the attack on Pearl Harbor and the Battle of Iwo Jima, stirred fears of a Japanese invasion on American soil, and these tensions resonated even within the walls of Davies' palatial estate. Such pressing international concerns, coupled with the decline of Hearst's business empire and his declining health, formed a backdrop to the significant decisions Davies faced. Thus, in a move that reflected her astute financial acumen, Davies sold the beach house in 1945 amidst a property tax dispute, marking the end of an era for the mansion. The property, in its next incarnation, was acquired in 1947 by hotelier Joseph Drown for $600,000, roughly $8.2 million in today's US currency, who reimagined it as Ocean House, a luxurious hotel and exclusive beach club. Yet despite its inherent opulence, the hotel's success was fleeting, and the main mansion met its demise, crushed by demolition in 1956, a decision that faced opposition from local residents. Yet the Sand and Sea Club, a part of the estate, continued to thrive. The narrative of the estate took another turn when the state of California purchased it in 1960, repurposing the land into a parking lot of all things. Although the Sand and Sea Club remained operational under the city of Santa Monica, the 1994 Northridge earthquake caused severe damage, leading to the site's eventual wholesale abandonment. However, in a remarkable twist of architectural fate, the Annenberg Foundation intervened in 2005 with a substantial financial investment, breathing new life into the site. This led to the birth of the Annenberg Community Beach House at Santa Monica State Beach in 2009, a laudable partnership between the Annenberg Foundation, California State Parks, and the City of Santa Monica, realized at a cost of approximately $30 million. Today, the site retains only the guest house and the main pool from its original architecture, serving as poignant reminders of its storied past. But the Annenberg Community Beach House stands as a harmonious blend of historical reverence and contemporary function, a public space that not only offers stunning ocean views, recreational facilities, and event spaces, but also symbolizes the evolution of the property from a private enclave to a communal treasure. Indeed, this transformation from a private mansion to a public haven encapsulates the fluid nature of architectural history and cultural memory in Los Angeles. The Annenberg Community Beach House is therefore not just a physical space. It is a narrative of change, preservation, and adaptation, holding within its walls tales of a past era of Hollywood glamour. Although the Roaring Twenties is associated with speakeasies, flapper girls, and burgeoning sports stars like Babe Ruth, if you yourself were placed in a time machine and put smack dab in the middle of that glorious decade, perhaps the biggest household name you'd hear from millions of adoring fans is that of Rudolph Valentino. Indeed, this Italian-American actor became the quintessential heartthrob of the silent film era, whose meteoric rise to stardom was as dramatic as his on-screen personas. And Valentino's success was not only evident in his cinematic achievements, but also manifested physically in the form of Falcon Lair, a sprawling Benedict Canyon estate that became one of Hollywood's first homes of the stars. In its prime, Falcon Lair served as the ultimate symbol of Valentino's success, hosting the who's who of Tinseltown on its iconic grounds, and representing the glamour and opulence that characterized Hollywood's golden age. However, the story of Falcon Lair did not end with Valentino. This majestic estate later became the property of Doris Duke, the legendary billionaire heiress who cherished the home, adding major additions and even passing away within its walls in 1993. And yet, despite its historical and cultural significance, Falcon Lair could not escape the fate that befalls so many unforgettable buildings in the City of Angels. In today's episode, we'll describe how, in a turn of events that mirrored the transient nature of fame and fortune in Hollywood, Rudolph Valentino's, and later Doris Duke's, iconic California mansion met its end, as we describe. Why the ultimate old Hollywood mansion was destroyed. In 1925, Rudolph Valentino, the silent film luminary, whose cinematic magnetism ensnared the hearts of millions, acquired the Falcon Lair estate, set against the lush backdrop of Benedict Canyon in Bel Air, Los Angeles. You see, Benedict Canyon, during the 1910s and 1920s, was an emerging haven for the burgeoning elite of Hollywood's golden age, and its seclusion offered a perfect retreat from the limelight, while its proximity to the developing movie industry made it a strategically poised sanctuary for those in the silent film sector. And this 4-acre estate, nestled within these storied hills, cost Valentino a substantial $175,000, a shake-level sum that translates to over $3 million today. But this purchase was not just a matter of acquiring real estate, it was a declaration of his stellar success and the lavish lifestyle that fame had afforded him during the exhilarating days of the Roaring Twenties. Thus, by choosing this spot, Valentino was planting his roots in an area that was as strategic as it was scenic, reflecting both his personal taste and his public persona. And the name Falcon Lair was a homage to Valentino's never-realized film project, The Hooded Falcon. And this estate served as his private escape, a place where he could elude the intense public gaze while still basking in the glow of his cinematic fame. Furthermore, its prime location afforded Valentino a cloistered feel, while still providing quick access to the burgeoning glamour of nearby Beverly Hills and what would become the famed Rodeo Drive shopping area. And architecturally, Falcon Lair was a marvel of the 1920s, exemplifying the Spanish Revival style that was gaining prominence among the Hollywood elite. This aesthetic, characterized by its rustic stucco walls, ornate tile work, and wrought iron details, resonated with Valentino's European sensibilities and was favored for its romantic allure, reminiscent of California's historic Spanish roots. Therefore, it mirrored the opulence and dramatic flair that Valentino himself brought to the silver screen, making it a fitting choice for his personal haven. Additionally, the main residence was a treasure trove showcasing Valentino's vast array of antiques and memorabilia acquired during his international travels. For example, the living room was adorned with an exquisite Persian rug that Valentino found in a bazaar in Istanbul, and the study housed an impressive collection of Renaissance art pieces he had hand-picked from small Italian villages. And the estate's exterior was equally impressive, with over 50 Italian cypress trees standing sentinel, their tall, slender forms creating a stately and serene ambiance that transported visitors straight to the Tuscan countryside. The European aesthetic that Valentino so cherished was further enhanced by a meticulously curated Italian-style garden featuring a variety of Mediterranean flora and a classic fountain centerpiece. This landscape design not only beautified the estate, but also served as a personal sanctuary where Valentino could unwind amidst the natural beauty that echoed his Italian heritage. And even better for Valentino, his fervor for horses was evident in the estate's layout, which included stables for his 4 Arabian horses. It was thus not uncommon to see the film star indulging in his equestrian passion, taking morning rides across his vast domain. But the property did not stop at lavish living spaces. It also featured a variety of extravagant additions. Notably, a 3-bay garage was later transformed by a subsequent owner, Doris Duke, into a chic 3-bedroom guest house, complete with a pool pavilion. Additionally, the estate hid a mysterious basement filled with a tangle of electrical wires and switches unearthed by actor Harry Carey during his tenure at the residence. Therefore, Falcon Lair was a fortress of solitude and splendor that perfectly encapsulated Valentino's and later Doris Duke's affluence and seemingly unending ability to attract wealth and prestige. And yet, unlike the billionaire heiress who would later call this Hollywood mansion home, Rudolph Valentino did not grow up with a silver spoon, or even a copper one, in his mouth. Let's look into the rags-to-riches tale of one of America's first movie stars and discover how his meteoric rise to stardom eventually became embossed in stone through this legendary home. Born in 1895 under modest circumstances in the Italian town of Castellaneta, Rudolph Valentino's ascent to Hollywood fame is a classic American tale of stardom. Indeed, his early life hardly hinted at his future status as a silver screen legend. And though his radiant looks and vibrant character won him admiration from the ladies back home in Italy, the lack of professional prospects soon propelled him toward America, with a hopeful arrival at Ellis Island in late 1913 at just 18. Opting to keep his Italian citizenship, Valentino dove headfirst into the American job market, and by 1914 he was earning the modern equivalent of around $5,000 a month, dancing the tango in partnership with Joan Sawyer, a gig he secured through the connections of restaurateur Joe Pani. And his subsequent role as a taxi dancer at Maxim's restaurant cabaret saw him rubbing elbows with exiled European nobles and wealthy patrons. Then, the year 1917 marked a turn in Valentino's career path when he joined a traveling operetta troupe heading for Utah. Although the company disbanded shortly after, Valentino continued his artistic pursuits, eventually landing in Los Angeles. Residing at the Alexandria Hotel, he kept busy dancing, teaching, and wooing a predominantly female clientele, who often indulged the young heartthrob with the use of their luxury vehicles. Soon, persistence in seeking film roles would eventually bear fruit, and despite being pigeonholed early on as a cinematic villain, his breakout role in the 1921 hit The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse redefined his image. Playing a tango dancing playboy, Valentino captivated audiences and rocketed to fame. His subsequent role in The Sheik further cemented his status as a hallmark of exotic allure and sensuality, drawing throngs to theaters, entranced by his vibrant performance and compelling charm. Thus, by 1925, when he purchased the grounds of Falcon Lair, Valentino wasn't just a movie star. He was an icon of the roaring 20s opulence and boldness. He decided to materialize his success through the construction of a grand Spanish revival-style mansion on the property, and architect Wallace Neff, celebrated for his expertise in Spanish colonial revival architecture, was tasked with bringing Valentino's lavish vision to life. Neff's design incorporated signature elements such as red clay tiles, thick stucco walls, and graceful arched windows and doorways, and the addition of wrought iron balconies and vivid tiles infused the estate with aesthetic richness and cultural resonance, reflecting Valentino's taste for intricate and cosmopolitan designs. Additionally, Valentino oversaw every aspect of the construction of Falcon Lair, diving into every detail from the selection of materials to the layout of the gardens. And his meticulous involvement extended to the ornamental choices, ensuring that each facet met his exact standards. By the time the home was completed, it stood as a grand example of one of silent-era Hollywood's most opulent homes. And now, all Rudolph Valentino had left to do was invite a few friends over to bask in his creative glory. Rudolph Valentino's mornings at Falcon Lair typically kicked off with a spirited gallop across the estate's sprawling grounds atop one of his prized Arabian horses. Here, the silent film icon found his bliss in the saddle, a respite nestled, oops, make that comfortably placed, among the lush landscapes of his grand estate. After dismounting, Valentino would retreat to his study, a sanctuary where he indulged his eclectic tastes, ranging from literature to the fine-tuning of his enviable collection of luxury cars parked in his expansive three-car garage. But Valentino, despite Falcon Lair's seemingly out-of-the-way location, never quite vanished from the limelight. Instead, he transformed his home into a hub for Hollywood's elite, hosting dinners and soirees that quickly became must-attend events. The buzz surrounding these gatherings would echo through Tinseltown, with guests frequently left awestruck by the sheer opulence of the venue and Valentino's consummate charm. It was these grandiose parties that drew a glittering crowd, from silver screen legends to the financial titans of the West Coast, all eager for a taste of Valentino's famed hospitality. And yet, within a year of the home's grand opening, tragedy struck on a seemingly ordinary day on the 15th of August 1926, when Valentino was suddenly overcome by severe abdominal pain at Manhattan's Hotel Ambassador. Rushed to the New York Polyclinic Hospital, he was diagnosed with appendicitis and gastric ulcers, a condition that would later bear his name, Valentino's syndrome. Despite a swift surgical response, complications ensued, and by August 18th, the outlook seemed hopeful. Yet within days, his condition regressed dramatically, leading to his untimely demise on August 23rd at the tender age of 31. Now Valentino's passing prompted an outpouring of public grief rarely seen. An estimated 100,000 people thronged the streets of Manhattan, their collective sorrow marking the profound impact Valentino had on his fans and the film industry alike. Valentino's funeral took place at St. Malachy's Roman Catholic Church, affectionately known as the Actors' Chapel, located in the heart of New York's bustling theatre district, and the service was attended by many from the entertainment industry. Valentino left the bulk of his will to his brother, sister, and Rambova's aunt, Teresa Werner, ensuring that his legacy would continue to be a part of the lives of those he cherished most. And yet, Falcon Lair itself was thrust onto the auction scene to settle his debts. In the next chapter, we'll feature a not-so-anonymous billionaire buyer who would pick up the legacy of Falcon Lair in the decades following Valentino's passing. Following Valentino's passing in 1926, Falcon Lair itself morphed into a realm of grief and intrigue. A flamboyant South American playboy erected a garden monument in the 1930s, adding a touch of sentimental gravitas to the estate. Then, the 1940s saw the mansion change hands multiple times until tobacco heiress Doris Duke acquired it in 1953, introduced to the property by none other than actress Gloria Swanson. Duke envisioned Falcon Lair as a serene haven from her bustling lifestyle and extensive travels, and though she initially planned to restore the grand main house, practical realities redirected her efforts toward revamping the outbuildings, including stables and staff quarters. During Duke's tenure, the estate transformed into a vibrant spot for impromptu jazz sessions, mirroring her passion for music and her association with jazz musician Joe Castro. For instance, the estate's music room, swathed in velvet, and a living room decked with ostrich feather ceilings, became the stage for numerous soirees featuring luminaries like Duke Ellington. Yet, Duke's residency was not devoid of personal strife. Post-breakup with Castro, Falcon Lair served as a mere layover between her various homes, and in her twilight years it became a refuge during her recovery from numerous elective surgeries. The 1980s underscored a shift in Duke's demeanor, marked by her volatile relationship with adopted daughter Chandy Hefner, who was ultimately disinherited. Doris Duke's final years mirrored the estate's tales of turbulence. In 1992, after a facelift gone awry, she suffered a series of health setbacks, culminating in a severe stroke. The legendary heiress passed away at Falcon Lair in 1993, and like Valentino before her, Duke left behind a legacy intertwined with the fabled estate, each owner adding layers to its legend without dimming its storied past. And yet, although this Hollywood mansion had all of the trappings of a living piece of history, legendary stars, billionaire heiresses passing away within its walls, and public support. What could lead society to decide to send the wrecking ball to Falcon Lair? In the next chapter, we'll find our answer as we meet the end of this storied estate. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, Falcon Lair, the famed estate that once hosted Hollywood's glitterati, found itself teetering on the brink of obscurity. Yet the allure of the golden age of cinema amplified by the legendary mystique of Rudolph Valentino, the Latin lover of silent films, quickly sparked a resurgence in public interest that transcended mere nostalgia. Reports of eerie occurrences and phantom sightings at Falcon Lair only magnified its appeal, turning the estate into a curious intersection of celebrity lore and ghostly whispers. Furthermore, its role as a film set kept it relevant. The 2002 indie film The Trip was just one of many projects that tapped into the estate's old-world charm, ensuring its place in the spotlight wasn't entirely dimmed by time. Thus, the battle to preserve Falcon Lair was fervent, with historians and preservationists at the forefront endeavouring to capture and keep alive the estate's storied legacy. However, maintaining Falcon Lair was no small feat. The demands of preservation clashed with the realities of modern development pressures. By 2006, a tough, albeit heart-wrenching decision was made. The main house was to be demolished. This decision sent shockwaves through the community, especially among those who had tirelessly advocated for its preservation. The demolition was not just the loss of a building, it was seen as the closing of a chapter, a poignant end to an era where Hollywood's golden age still flickered, however faintly. The reaction to the demolition was palpable across various circles, from Joe Castro, a jazz musician who fondly remembered the lavish parties under the patronage of Doris Duke, to historians who had long fought to save Falcon Lair. It was a loss that transcended the physical. It tugged at the heartstrings of those who cherished the Hollywood of yore. Despite the demise of its main structure, the essence of Falcon Lair lives on. Rumors persist that Valentino's spirit still wanders its grounds, keeping the legacy of his charisma and cinematic impact alive. Today, only a few parts of the original Falcon Lair estate still exist and can be seen. The former stable building and three-bay garage, converted by Doris Duke into a three-bedroom guesthouse and pool pavilion, remains standing on 1.3 acres of the original property, and the estate's original gates are still in place, serving as a poignant reminder of the property's storied past. Take a second and imagine you've been placed in a time machine and whisked away to live the sumptuous life of an A-list star during Golden Era Hollywood. As you decide how to spend your Saturday night in Tinseltown with your luxury-loving co-stars, you receive an invite to meet up with a few actors and actresses at Hollywood's most luxurious hangout, the Garden of Allah Hotel. And when you arrive, you are instantly captivated by the sprawling Moorish architecture and lush tropical gardens that seem more like a mirage than reality in the Los Angeles heat. Stepping into the lobby, the scene is alive with the glamorous elite. There's legendary leading man Humphrey Bogart sharing a joke with the ever-charismatic Errol Flynn, both leaning casually against the grand piano. Nearby, Marlene Dietrich and Greta Garbo engage in a deep conversation, their legendary faces half hidden in the dim, sultry lighting. The air is thick with the fragrance of cigarette smoke mingled with expensive perfumes as jazz music softly serenades the crowd of glittering stars. Yet behind this luminous display of Hollywood's finest hour, the aura of a heartbreaking fate lingers. This vibrant sanctuary, alive with the spirit of an era that created modern celebrity, was destined to get demolished. The walls that harbored secrets, dreams, and the unrestrained joy of icons would soon be torn down, replaced by the cold anonymity of a commercial complex. In today's episode, we'll explain the history of the legendary Garden of Allah and how its destruction was not just the end of a pricey hotel, but a poignant farewell to a golden age as we describe why Hollywood's swankiest hotel was demolished. In 1927, the Garden of Allah Hotel swung open its doors and strutted onto the Hollywood scene like a starlet ready for her close-up. Originally the estate of silent film siren Alla Nazimova, this Sunset Boulevard haunt quickly morphed into a hotbed of glitz, glamour, and the occasional scandal, embodying the essence of Hollywood's golden age. And the hotel's Spanish-style villas, tucked amidst lush, whispering gardens and an infamous black C-shaped pool, were more than mere lodging. they were a backdrop to the lives of the stars who frequented them. Thus, from its inception, the Garden of Allah was a bastion of exclusivity, offering the crème de la crème of Hollywood's elite a secluded paradise where they could frolic away from the flashbulbs of the press. Now, with its reputation for discretion and opulence, the hotel soon became a pilgrimage site for anyone who was or aspired to be anyone in Tinseltown. And the management knew the assignment: keep the stars happy and the paparazzi guessing. Indeed, this secret source of privacy mixed with luxury ensured that a night at the Garden of Allah wasn't just a stay, it was a statement. Furthermore, the hotel's guest list read like a who's who of 20th century icons. For example, F. Scott Fitzgerald, that sharp chronicler of American excess, camped out here during his Hollywood years, penning the drafts of what would be his final opus, The Last Tycoon. And Errol Flynn, the swashbuckling Aussie with a penchant for mischief, turned the hotel into his personal playground, his antics becoming as legendary as his films. Whether by the bar or by the pool, Flynn's magnetism ensured there was never a dull moment around him. But the hotel's allure wasn't lost on the likes of Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall either. Their storied romance added a dash of sweet to the cocktail of personalities that frequented the garden. The literary set found a haven here too, with Dorothy Parker and Robert Benchley spearheading an Algonquin Round Table West, where wit was the currency and laughter a given. Yet it wasn't just the literary and film elite who were drawn to the garden's enchanted environs. Musical maestros like Igor Stravinsky composed timeless pieces within its walls, while George Gershwin could be found tickling the ivories, serenading an impromptu gathering of Hollywood royalty in the lobby. Therefore, the Garden of Allah wasn't merely a hotel, it was a microcosm of Hollywood's most golden era. Under its roofs and amongst its gardens, the lines between reality and performance blurred as stars from across the art spectrum mingled, creating a melting pot of creativity. As the lights finally dimmed on the Garden of Allah and its original building was demolished, its legacy was ironically cemented in the annals of Hollywood history. Far from being just another hotel, it had served as a cultural crucible, a nexus for the era's titans, and a birthplace for the tales and scandals destined for the silver screen's lore. For, as golden-era Hollywood gossip columnist Sheila Graham put it, there is no place for a Garden of Allah that for one brief moment was Camelot. It was inevitable that Hollywood as we knew it and its satellite, Allah's Garden, should disappear together. How exactly did this legendary locale get its start in early Hollywood, similar to the stars it would play host to for decades? To get our answer, we'll have to roll back to the turn of the century, in the next chapter. The Garden of Allah Hotel, a name that twinkles with the same glamour as the Hollywood Walk of Fame, began its illustrious journey in the early 1910s, not as a hotel, but as a private estate dubbed Havenhurst. Crafted by the enterprising William H. Hay in 1913, this 2.5-acre slice of heaven at 8152 Sunset Boulevard was destined for stardom. By 1918, Alla Nazimova, a silent film star with the dramatic chops and violet eyes to match, had leased the estate, succumbing to its charms. And by the next year, she couldn't resist. She bought it outright. With a visionary's zeal, Nazimova poured a cool $65,000, equal to around $1.1 million today, into revamps, shaping her new domain into a salute to her Crimean roots, with a Black Sea-shaped swimming pool and lush, manicured landscapes. Nazimova, ever the clever hostess, then christened her revamped abode the Garden of Allah, spelled like her first name, without the letter H at the end, winking at her own name and nodding to Robert S. Hitchens' novel The Garden of Allah. And her home quickly became a magnet for Hollywood's elite, known for its heady artistic salons that attracted a colourful tapestry of guests, many from the lesbian community, buzzing with discussions on literature, philosophy, and the arts. However, as the glitter of the 1920s began to dim, so did Nazimova's financial stability. Her cinematic ventures had not paid off, leaving her cradling a wilting purse. It was then that the whispers of a new venture reached her ears. Why not turn this star-studded sanctuary into a hotel? Intrigued and desperate, Nazimova let the idea bloom into a grand plan. With the pomp of a true cinema queen, she transformed her estate in 1926, commissioning the aid of architect Frank L. Moline, whose name was already etched on some of LA's finest buildings. Together, they dreamed up the Garden of Allah Hotel, envisioning a cluster of 25 luxury Spanish Moorish villas nestled among the gardens, each a private retreat with the sumptuous allure of old Hollywood. Moline's master plan was a symphony of aesthetics and function. The famous pool retained its central cameo, around which the new villas were carefully placed to foster a sense of secluded splendor. And each villa was a fortress of privacy, with teak floors, heavy Spanish furniture, and modern amenities that included kitchenettes and bathrooms, perfect for the who's who of Tinseltown craving discreet luxury. The transformation was nothing short of a scene from a high-budget film. Construction crews became unsung heroes, working diligently through 1926, ensuring that Moline's vision, complete with the preservation of grand old trees and the integration of new lavish structures, was realized without a hitch. And the hotel's grand opening on the 9th of January 1927 was an affair to remember, an 18-hour gala that saw the crème de la crème of Hollywood descend upon the Garden of Allah. As night cloaked the city, the estate burst into a kaleidoscope of lights, enchanting every onlooker and promising many starlit nights to come. Then, subsequent tweaks and tunes were made to perfect the guest experience. The on-site restaurant transformed to make room for more guest spaces, and a lively bar by the pool became the new hub for the glitterati. Amidst the advent of talkies, some villas were even soundproofed, accommodating the creative sanctuaries needed by the era's film icons. By 1930, as the garden gracefully evolved under new ownership, it subtly changed its moniker by adding an H to become the Garden of Allah Hotel, a move that delicately shifted its legacy from its founder's personal tribute to a standalone symbol of Hollywood's golden era. Therefore, although the 1920s hotel was a beacon of Hollywood luxury, its best days were yet to come, as LA entered its golden era. If golden era Hollywood's luxurious epoch could be distilled into one beguiling locale, it could arguably be the Garden of Allah Hotel. Throughout the 1930s, this charming oasis not only provided a sumptuous backdrop for Tinseltown's glitterati, but also functioned as the social nucleus of a burgeoning film industry. Located conveniently near the major studios, yet securely tucked away behind lush greenery, the garden offered a sanctuary where luminaries could cavort with abandon under the Southern California sun. In an era shadowed by the Great Depression, the hotel emerged as a glamorous enclave where hedonism was not just a pastime, but a fine art. The verdant grounds and quaint villas of the garden became scenes of storied soirees and furtive romances. Imagine the tableau: Humphrey Bogart with a cigarette dangling from his lips, Errol Flynn's rakish grin lighting up the garden paths, and Greta Garbo's enigmatic presence by the infamous pool, a magnet for spontaneous revelry. And this iconic watering hole wasn't merely a playground for movie stars. It was a crucible of creative alchemy. Here, the wits of New York's Algonquin Round Table, led by the sharp-tongued Dorothy Parker and the ever-droll Robert Benchley, found a West Coast roost. And the literary elite's infusion into the hotel's fabric elevated its prestige, making it a pulsating bridge between East Coast intellectualism and Hollywood's burgeoning glamour. So, what was it about the garden that made it such fertile ground for creativity? Perhaps it was the informal mingling of minds by the poolside, where composers like Igor Stravinsky could exchange notes with screen sirens, or in the bar where a struggling F. Scott Fitzgerald might find inspiration for his next screenplay amidst the clink of glasses. Furthermore, As the world spun into the 1940s, engulfed by the turmoil of World War II, the garden's allure did not wane, unlike many places in America. Instead, it adapted, becoming a beacon for those in the throes of wartime anxiety. Gloria Stewart, of later Titanic fame, epitomized this era, turning her residence into a culinary haven where scarcity was defied with lavish dinner parties that often morphed into fervent brainstorming sessions. These gatherings, rich with the aroma of rationed delights, sowed the seeds of numerous Hollywood classics. Therefore, in Golden Era Hollywood, this A-list haven wasn't just a hotel, it was a microcosm of the industry itself. Yet, in the post-war years, as America changed rapidly from depression to optimism and the baby boom generation began, the Garden of Allah began to be seen as old hat, and trouble was afoot. The Garden of Allah Hotel, a once sparkling jewel in Hollywood's crown, faced its twilight years in the 1950s with the same dramatic flair with which it had lived its golden days. Once the heartbeat of Hollywood's social whirl, the Garden began to wilt under the weight of a changing industry and shifting cultural mores. Specifically, the allure of this storied sanctuary diminished as the glitterati who once sought its luxurious anonymity began putting down roots in the lush enclaves of Beverly Hills and beyond, eschewing temporary hotel stays for more permanent digs. Concurrently, the rise of sleek modern hotels with all the latest conveniences lured away those who might once have revelled in the Garden's old-world charm, and the once irresistible magnet for celebrities and creative mavericks was finding itself edged out by the next generation of accommodations. Adding to its challenges, the social fabric of Hollywood itself was transforming. The 1950s were marred by the chill of the Red Scare, casting a shadow over the Garden's freewheeling ethos. Where once the air was thick with the promise of secrets and scandal, qualities that had burnished its legend, there now hovered a palpable tension, a sense of watchful eyes and whispered accusations. And the once celebrated revelries that defined the Garden's character became liabilities, maligned by a society increasingly buttoned up and conservative. Efforts to revitalize the Garden of Allah spluttered like a fading starlet's comeback attempt. Renovations and management shake-ups attempted to reclaim the lost mystique, but fell short, and ownership shuffled through hopeful hands, each set trying to capture the elusive magic that had defined the hotel's better days. By 1957, when the property passed to Morris Markowitz and Isidore Rosanus for a mere $500,000, the writing was on the proverbial wall, and Rosanus's untimely demise 5 months later only hastened the inevitable. The final nail in the coffin was hammered in April 1959, when Bart Lytton of Lytton Savings and Loan acquired the Garden, not to restore it but to raise it. His vision was a stark departure from the past, a modern bank building to house his financial empire, a symbol of progress indifferent to the nostalgic cries of Hollywood's old guard. As news of the impending demolition spread, a collective lament rose from the Hollywood community. Time magazine captured the sentiment in a poignant piece, reminiscing about the days when the town still managed to be wacky in the grand manner. Thus, in August of 1959, the Garden threw open its doors one last time for a grand farewell party, a swan song that drew over 1,000 mourners. They came to pay homage to the spirit of Alla Nazimova, the visionary founder, screening her film Salome as a tribute amidst the Garden's fading echoes. But what followed was a macabre auction, where bits and pieces of Hollywood history were parceled out to the highest bidder. From opulent furnishings to kitschy keepsakes, each item was a tangible piece of the grand narrative that the Garden of Allah had authored over the decades. As the wrecking balls tore through the structure, a chapter closed not just on a building but on an epoch. The landscape of Hollywood was irrevocably altered, its once vibrant heart now a casualty of progress and changing tastes. In 1960, the iconic Garden of Allah Hotel gave way to the modern silhouette of the Lytton Savings Building, marking a significant transformation along the Sunset Boulevard skyline. Spearheaded by Bart Lytton, president of Lytton Savings and Loan, this new development was designed by architect Kurt Meyer, whose vision embodied the mid-century modern ethos of clean lines and functional aesthetics. Inside, the space was bathed in natural light, creating an inviting atmosphere for bank customers and a work-friendly environment for its staff. By 1962, the adjacent Lytton Centre was completed, introducing a museum and auditorium that expanded the building's role from a financial hub to a cultural nexus within the community. As the decades unfolded, the Lytton Savings Building, along with its Lytton Centre of the Visual Arts, became pillars of the local arts scene. The centre's museum hosted a kaleidoscope of exhibitions, attracting art lovers and artists alike, showcasing works ranging from modern sculptures to historical paintings. Meanwhile, its auditorium became a favoured venue for a variety of community events, from thought-provoking lectures to vibrant performances, echoing the creative spirit once nurtured by its predecessor, the Garden of Allah. Despite its cultural contributions, the fortunes of Lytton Savings were not to last. By 1968, the bank succumbed to bankruptcy, heralding yet another evolution of this iconic site, and the building's next incarnation was less illustrious, a strip mall. As the 21st century dawned, the narrative of the site took another dramatic turn. The early 2010s brought proposals for a new mixed-use development by none other than the celebrated architect Frank Gehry. This project, while promising revitalization and urban renewal, sparked a contentious debate among preservationists and developers. The former saw the Lytton Savings Building as an irreplaceable artifact of architectural history, while the latter argued for the necessity of modernization and increased housing density in the burgeoning city. Simultaneously recognized for its architectural significance, the site itself was designated as a Los Angeles Historic Cultural Monument in 2016, a nod to its storied past and enduring presence on Sunset Boulevard. But, in a twist befitting the cinematic history it harbors, the site, formerly known as the Garden of Allah Hotel and later the Lytton Savings Building, has encountered yet another plot twist in its ongoing narrative. In April 2021, the demolition of the Lytton Savings Building cleared the stage for a new act, the proposed Gehry development. However, contrary to previous expectations that this project would swiftly rise from the rubble, the grand designs have been stalled and the land has taken an unexpected turn back onto the real estate market. As of today, the lot at 8150 Sunset Boulevard, once the home of the legendary Garden of Allah, stands vacant, its future uncertain. And despite the current state of limbo, the spirit of the site's storied past continues to resonate with those who cherish Hollywood's golden era. Efforts to honor the legacy of the Garden of Allah are ongoing, with proposals to integrate elements of its glamorous history into any future development. Imagine that you have gone into a time machine and been transported to Hollywood's golden era as an A-list celebrity with a household name in Tinseltown. It's Saturday night, and you've just received an invite from your old friend Clark Gable for a night on the town at the famed Coconut Grove in the legendary Ambassador Hotel of Los Angeles. When you arrive, the air is thick with anticipation and the sweet aroma of gardenia. Celebrities in dazzling gowns and sharp tuxedos glide across the red carpet, their laughter mingling with the soft clinking of champagne glasses. Inside the Coconut Grove, the magic intensifies. The vaulted ceilings, adorned with glimmering chandeliers, cast a golden glow over the dance floor where the big band's brass section gleams under the spotlight. Fred Astaire might whisk a starlet away in a flawless display of dance, or Judy Garland might hop on stage and perform a song or two, while waiters navigate the crowds carrying trays of martinis and canapes. Here at the heart of Hollywood, the night is alive with the promise of endless possibilities, a playground for the rich and famous where the music never stops and the stars never fade. And yet, nothing lasts forever. As decades passed, the luster of the Ambassador Hotel dimmed. The very place where presidents had campaigned and movies were filmed gradually succumbed to the pressures of modernity and economic shifts. By the late 20th century, the hotel, once a beacon of glamour and luxury, faced decline and neglect, leading to its eventual demolition in 2006. In today's episode, we'll take you through its full transition, from pinnacle to rubble, mirroring the fleeting nature of fame and the relentless march of progress that reshapes cities and memories alike as we describe. How Hollywood's most opulent hotel was demolished. The Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles was more than just an elegant stopover. It was a veritable hub for the glitterati and power brokers of the 20th century. And from its inception in the roaring 1920s until its doors closed in the 1980s, before its eventual demolition in 2006, the hotel was a beacon for stars, statesmen, and everyone in between who mattered. Indeed, its famed Coconut Grove nightclub was virtually a second home to the Hollywood elite, and names like Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, and Barbra Streisand were just a few of the luminaries who graced its stage, contributing to the night spot's mythic status. Stars such as Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable were also regulars, seeking refuge in the hotel's opulent embrace and adding a dash of silver screen magic to the ambience. And politically, the Ambassador was equally significant. It hosted an impressive roster of US presidents, from Hoover through Nixon, and welcomed heads of state from across the globe. Moreover, the hotel's Fiesta Room played host to the Academy Awards itself during a pivotal era from 1930 to 1943. A period when the Oscars began taking the shape we recognize today, including the suspense-filled envelope reveal. Yet not all was glittering celebrations. In 1968, the hotel became the backdrop for a darker chapter, when Robert F. Kennedy delivered his victory speech in its ballroom, only to be assassinated moments later. Despite such horrific moments added to the hotel's lustrous ledger, the Ambassador soldiered on into the 1970s and beyond, continuing to host high-profile events, and Sammy Davis Jr. not only performed there but also brought a touch of 70s flair to the Coconut Grove, reimagining it with shag carpets and a disco ball, ensuring the party went on in true Hollywood style. Furthermore, the cultural and historical impact of the Ambassador Hotel stretched well beyond its luxurious rooms and star-studded galas. Certainly, it was pivotal in transforming Wilshire Boulevard from a mere dirt road into a vibrant urban artery. And this transformation attracted a kaleidoscope of visitors, from silent film stars to international dignitaries, cementing the hotel's place as a cornerstone of Los Angeles' social landscape. But how could such an iconic and enduring structure be destroyed when so many other lesser-known buildings from early Hollywood still stand to this very day? In order to find out, let's flip over to the next chapter and begin where it all started. In the fledgling days of the 1910s, as Los Angeles burst from its seams with rapid growth, the concept for the Ambassador Hotel took shape. And this period, marked by an influx of movie stars, moguls, and dignitaries, called for accommodations that were nothing short of grand. Now, Harry Culver, a hotelier with a keen eye for grandeur, and the namesake and founder of none other than Culver City, California, was among the visionaries who dreamt up a retreat that would declare Los Angeles a prime global destination. Now, the blueprints themselves for the Ambassador Hotel were nothing if not grandiose. Spanning 24 acres, the property wasn't just about rooms. It promised a golf course, a bowling alley, and the soon-to-be iconic Coconut Grove nightclub. Thus, from the very beginning, it was envisioned as a playground for the elite, a place where Hollywood's finest could revel in the highest standards of dining and entertainment available in the City of Angels. To translate these high hopes into concrete and marble, the founders enlisted the architectural prowess of Myron Hunt and Welton Becket. Hunt, an adept in Spanish and Mediterranean revival architecture, was tasked with crafting the exteriors and communal areas. And Becket, whose reputation in commercial architecture was ascending, took charge of the interior designs and creature comforts. Their collaborative efforts birthed a building that exuded sophistication with its Spanish flair and Mediterranean touches. Intricate archways, elaborate tilework, and verdant tropical gardens enveloped guests in luxury. And the coconut grove became a standout feature, complete with a waterfall, mechanical monkeys, and a ceiling that mimicked a starry night, ensuring a sensory experience that was second to none. But this architectural masterpiece was as practical as it was beautiful. The hotel's design allowed the social butterflies and power brokers of the time to shop, dine, and entertain themselves without ever stepping off the property. Then, June 1919 saw the first bricks laid, with the project overcoming considerable obstacles. Located on a mere dirt path that would become the bustling Wilshire Boulevard, the site initially seemed too remote. Yet the founders were undeterred, pouring immense resources into transforming this patch of land into a vibrant epicenter of social and cultural activity. And construction progressed swiftly, despite early doubts. The grand lobby was a parade of opulence, from Italian fireplaces and crystal chandeliers to oriental carpets and sumptuous draperies. But it was the coconut grove that captured most of the imagination and budget. Designed to be the jewel in the hotel's crown, it featured Mediterranean arches, a flowing waterfall, and whimsically suspended mechanical monkeys, all under a faux starlit sky. As 1920 waned and the opening day drew close, excitement reached a fever pitch. Every detail had been meticulously planned, and the architects and builders behind this opulent establishment radiated confidence. The Ambassador wasn't merely opening, it was primed to become the crown jewel of Los Angeles, a vivid declaration of the city's rise as a nexus of luxury, glamour, and global appeal. The Ambassador Hotel flung open its doors on New Year's Day, 1921, heralding a new era of opulence in Los Angeles. Yet it was the Coconut Grove nightclub, launching with a bang on April 21st of the same year, that truly put the establishment on the map as the city's hotspot for top-tier entertainment. With its tropical and somewhat fantastical decor, Coconut Grove offered an escape to a mystical paradise, and visitors were welcomed by doors adorned with gold-leafed palms, archways reminiscent of Moorish relics, a soothing waterfall, and a ceiling that mimicked a starry midnight sky. The venue even boasted mechanical monkeys, their amber eyes shining as they swung from papier-mâché palm trees, a whimsical touch borrowed from Rudolph Valentino's movie set for The Chic. Almost instantly, the allure of Coconut Grove drew a glittering crowd of Hollywood's finest, alongside socialites and political dignitaries, all vying for a spot in its exclusive 1,000-seat hall or one of the coveted annual membership boxes. Therefore, it was more than a nightclub. It was a veritable playground for the influential. And over the decades, the stage at Coconut Grove showcased a parade of legendary performers. From Bing Crosby, who first found fame there with the Rhythm Boys, to Judy Garland, Frank Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, and Nat King Cole. The club was alive with the voices and tunes that shaped a century. Notably, Crosby's dulcet tones became a staple at the Grove, while Garland immortalized the venue by recording her live album Garland at the Grove there in 1958, an impressive feat completed in just one take. But the nightclub wasn't just a stage for musical icons, it also hosted the Academy Awards on 5 occasions between 1930 and 1943. These ceremonies, held at Coconut Grove, played a pivotal role in shaping the Oscars into the spectacle they are today, complete with suspenseful category reveals and a more competitive edge. Beyond the glitz of its performances and red carpet events, Coconut Grove was a nexus for Los Angeles' elite social gatherings, and each twilight at the Grove was steeped in elegance and a splash of enchantment, offering a sanctuary where Hollywood luminaries and dignitaries could converge for an evening of relaxation and entertainment, all under one ornate roof. The club therefore embodied the vibrant heart of early 20th century Los Angeles, coming to life each night with an air of something almost ethereal. By the time the 1950s rolled around, however, the sheen of Coconut Grove began to dim. With the rise of new entertainment spots dotting Los Angeles, the once unrivaled hotspot found itself vying to retain its crown as the city's premier gathering place. And despite a series of makeovers in 1939 and 1957 aimed at rejuvenating the storied hotel, the Grove's old-world charm was increasingly eclipsed by fresher, more youth-centric venues that captivated the city's burgeoning younger crowd. Yet the Coconut Grove persisted as a cultural beacon, playing host to a roster of high-profile acts. Among these was Frank Sinatra, whose resonant voice filled the hall, Lena Horne, who brought her mesmerizing presence to the stage, and Barbra Streisand, whose 1963 performance at the Grove marked a pivotal moment as she teetered on the brink of fame, soon to enchant Broadway audiences as Fanny Brice in Funny Girl. However, it would be a shocking event that occurred 5 short years later at the Ambassador that would forever etch the hotel's walls in infamy. On what was supposed to be a high-spirited and optimistic evening of the 5th of June 1968, the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles transformed from a glittering hub of social life into the somber backdrop for a pivotal moment in U.S. history. You see, Robert F. Kennedy, then a U.S. Senator and promising presidential hopeful, had clinched the California primary, optioning to host a celebration and rally at the Embassy Ballroom of the Ambassador, as the night buzzed with an electric mix of hope and jubilation. The enthusiastic crowd, rallying with chants of "We want Bobby," was ripe with anticipation. However, the mood shifted dramatically when Kennedy, attempting to address the crowd, faced a malfunctioning microphone and humorously chided, "Can we get something that works?" These words, light-hearted yet poignant, would unexpectedly be his last in public. Sirhan Sirhan, a Palestinian immigrant driven by anti-Zionist sentiments, approached Kennedy as he exited the stage. With a concealed Ivor Johnson .22 LR revolver, Sirhan fired multiple rounds, striking Kennedy in the head and back. The chaos that ensued was not just a physical scramble, but a metaphorical shattering of the American dream, and Kennedy succumbed to his injuries nearly 25 hours later at Good Samaritan Hospital. The ripple effects of this tragedy were immediate and far-reaching. The Ambassador, a beacon of Hollywood's golden era, now stood as a grim reminder of the nation's loss. And the grandeur of its past, marked by star-studded galas and political gatherings, now felt like echoes in an empty room, overshadowed by the stark reality of Kennedy's demise. Following the assassination, the hotel seemed to wear its history like a heavy cloak. Its halls, once lively with the whispers of the elite and the clinking of champagne glasses, now murmured with the solemn tones of a site marked by national tragedy. Therefore, as the 1970s dawned, the Ambassador Hotel struggled to reclaim its former luster. The neighborhood around Wilshire, previously thriving and dynamic, succumbed to the creeping blight of economic downturns. Crime, substance abuse, and poverty infiltrated the area, further tarnishing the hotel's appeal and financial viability. Yet, despite these challenges, the Ambassador held on to its unique place in American cultural memory, and the hotel's famed Coconut Grove nightclub, a one-time playground for Hollywood's elite, faltered in its glamour. In a bid to rejuvenate its appeal, Sammy Davis Jr. spearheaded a 1970s revamp, rechristening it as the Now Grove. Yet, this effort to sync with the contemporary nightclub vibe didn't resonate with the intended audience, as the hotel and its environs had faded from their glittering heights. Compounding these woes was the burgeoning competition from sleeker, more modern venues sprouting throughout Los Angeles. These new destinations diverted both tourists and locals, diminishing the Ambassador's draw. Its aging structure and dated amenities could hardly compete, leaving it a relic of a bygone era. By the mid-1980s, drastic measures saw the closure of 350 out of 500 rooms to cut costs and conserve resources, but this retrenchment barely made a dent in the downward spiral. And by 1989, the inevitable unfolded, the hotel shuttered entirely, a victim to urban decay and the relentless evolution of Los Angeles' socio-economic scene. The Ambassador, once the jewel of LA's social life, had irreversibly lost its luster and relevance in the city's ever-changing high society. And yet, nobody actually believed that the structure itself would be demolished, and it would take more than a decade for this ever to be a real possibility. In the final chapter, we'll reveal the epic fight to save the Ambassador, and exactly how it failed. In 1989, the Ambassador Hotel checked out its final guest, but it didn't take long for the iconic Los Angeles landmark to become a hotbed of preservationist fervor. The Los Angeles Conservancy, backed by the Art Deco Society of Los Angeles, leapt into action, eager to shield the historic structure from the cold, hard swing of the wrecking ball. And with its storied walls at risk, the Ambassador Hotel's tale took a twist when the Los Angeles Unified School District snapped up the dilapidated edifice in 2001. With that, their plans were a bit of out with the old and in with the new, a school campus. This set the stage for a tug-of-war that pitted sentimental history against educational progress. And the preservationists were not just a passionate bunch, they were a loud one too. They embarked on a crusade through the 1990s and into the early 2000s, armed with public campaigns, history-filled soirees, and a myriad of proposals to breathe new life into the property. Ideas floated about converting the Ambassador into a swanky resort or perhaps a slice of an academic village. Hollywood even pitched in, with stars like Diane Keaton championing the cause from the Conservancy's board. Yet despite their spirited efforts and the public backing of silver screen luminaries, the preservationists faced an uphill battle. In 2004, the school district, weighing the hefty price tag of renovation against the benefits of a bespoke educational facility, opted to proceed with demolition plans. You see, the school district contended that the financial burden and logistical nightmares of revamping the Ambassador simply didn't stack up against the straightforward advantages of starting from scratch. But this decision did not sit well with the preservation community, who felt sidelined in a semblance of public discourse that, in their view, never aimed to reach a compromise. The demolition decision, they argued, ignored the deep historical roots and architectural splendor of the Ambassador, not to mention the tantalizing potential of adaptive reuse. As the dust settled, the LA Unified School District's plan took physical form, and in 2005, demolition began. Yet not all was lost to the echoes of history. The school district preserved a few gems: the famed entrance, the Coconut Grove nightclub, and a slice of the coffee shop, designed by renowned architect Paul Williams, were all integrated into the new educational complex. Thus, the battle over the Ambassador Hotel's fate highlighted a perennial urban dilemma: the clash between preserving the physical echoes of the past and making room for future chapters. While the preservationists didn't get their fairy tale ending, the remnants of the Ambassador Hotel still whisper tales of a glamorous, star-studded past to students who might otherwise wander through less inspired hallways. Therefore, despite the Ambassador Hotel's physical disappearance, its legacy continues to be felt in Los Angeles. The site's transformation into the Robert F. Kennedy Community Schools complex has been a bittersweet endeavor, with the new educational facility serving as both a tribute to the hotel's history and a painful reminder of what was lost. The school's curriculum and mission also reflect the Senator's commitment to social justice, with each of the 6 autonomous pilot schools having a distinct focus on issues such as human rights, environmental sustainability, and community engagement. Through this educational endeavor, the spirit of the Ambassador Hotel lives on, marrying history with progress in a community-centered narrative that honors its illustrious past while looking forward to a modern future. In the golden age of Hollywood, the hills were alive with more than just the sound of music. They were dotted with the palatial homes of the silver screen's brightest stars. Imagine, if you will, a veritable Shangri-La nestled in the Hollywood Hills, where every mansion was seemingly in competition to outdo the opulence of the studio sets where their owners spent their working hours. The walls of these estates could, of course, not talk, but had they been afforded the gift of gab, the stories they could tell would rival the screenplays that won their residents their statuettes. Yet, regardless of their storied pasts or the fame of their inhabitants, these iconic houses couldn't escape one final plot twist. Many of these once gleaming beacons of the American dream have traded hands faster than studio scripts, with each new owner adding a layer of modernity and, ultimately, demolition. In today's episode of Old Money Mansions, we'll take you through the top 5 most opulent mansions of the golden age of Hollywood that eventually met the wrecking ball and, unfortunately, were demolished. In the sunny sprawl of Los Angeles, precisely at 641 South Irving Boulevard, once presided a residence that could rival the star power of Tinseltown's finest. The William O. Jenkins House, a stately name for a stately place, was as iconic to the Hollywood scene as the celebrities on the Walk of Fame. Indeed, this illustrious dwelling wasn't just bricks and mortar, it was an emblem of Hollywood's gilded era, echoing the grand narrative of its cinematic triumphs. Sprouting from the vision of William O. Jenkins, a mogul whose sweet tooth for sugar plantations in Mexico was well known, the mansion's Mediterranean flair was conjured between 1919 and 1924. Despite its splendor, the Jenkins family's occupancy was as brief as a cameo appearance. They called it home for merely a year before Mexico beckoned them back. Yet the structure stood resilient, with a skeleton of steel, concrete, and brick, all lining its imposing interior. Then the plot thickened in 1936, when the manse was snapped up by J. Paul Getty, an oil baron with no designs to nest within its walls. Instead, it became a domicile for an ex-wife, perhaps a parting gift wrapped in Spanish tiles and arches. The estate thus transcended its residential role to become a Hollywood character in its own right, gracing the silver screen as Norma Desmond's abode in the classic Sunset Boulevard. The film, marinated in black comedy and noir, was a smash, collecting accolades and Oscars alike, with the mansion's facade lending gravitas to the story. But alas, not every star is eternal, and in 1957, the mansion bowed out, yielding to the tide of modernity that brought an office tower in its stead. The spirit of the mansion, however, refuses to be forgotten. It remains etched in the collective memory as a hallmark of Hollywood's most dazzling epoch through its presence in one of the most beloved films of all time. In an era when the Jazz Age was in full swing and Hollywood's silver screen glowed with stars, Rudolph Valentino stood out. This Italian-born actor, who set hearts aflutter in The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse and The Sheik, soared to the zenith of his profession in the Roaring Twenties. With fame came the spoils, and Valentino's spoil of choice was a Moorish-style palace nestled in Beverly Hills, the so-called Falcon Lair. Costing the princely sum of $175,000, no chump change back then, Valentino's estate was more than a home. It was a declaration of his celluloid success. Perched above Benedict Canyon, it was a sanctum of status and solitude. Inside, the mansion was a veritable cornucopia of art and antiques. Outside, Italian cypress trees stood sentry by the dozens, flanking an Italianate garden worthy of Rome itself. In fact, 4 Arabian horses enjoyed their own bespoke stables, and this wasn't just a retreat from the glare of the spotlights. It was a personal palace and a regal love nest for Valentino and his then-wife, Natasha Rambova. But Cupid's arrow was not to remain lodged in the estate's heart. The ink had barely dried on the deed when the couple's marriage unraveled. And if that wasn't melodramatic enough, Valentino himself was to make an untimely exit stage left. In 1926, less than a year after Falcon Lair's gates swung open for him, he unexpectedly passed away. The ensuing years turned Falcon Lair into a revolving door of characters, a monument to Valentino here, a would-be sanctuary for the heartbroken there, with celebrities like Gloria Swanson and tobacco heiress Doris Duke calling it home. Yet, as time marched on, so too did the bulldozers of progress. By the early 2000s, renovation spelled the end for most of the mansion, leaving only the outer gates, a fence, and the garage as silent witnesses to Valentino's once grandiose digs. And while Valentino's regal Moorish residence may have succumbed to the unstoppable tides of change, the spirit of that golden era, as embodied by the dash and romance of its silver screen shake, remains. Next, in a twist reminiscent of the great stage dramas, the iconic Alla Nazimova estate, originally crafted in 1913 by the savvy developer William H. Hay, was ultimately christened with the flair of Broadway itself by none other than the star Alla Nazimova. Nazimova, whose name echoed through the halls of Broadway, saw beyond the estate's mere mortar and beams to envision a realm of Hollywood splendor, dubbing her abode the Garden of Allah, a nod to both her own name and the literary work by Robert Smythe Hitchens. As the Roaring Twenties reached their zenith, Nazimova's estate underwent a metamorphosis of Hollywood proportions. The year 1927 saw the Garden of Allah transform from a silent star's mansion to the talk of Tinseltown, the Garden of Allah Hotel. With the cunning of a showbiz veteran facing financial straits, Nazimova spun her land into gold, erecting around 30 villas of quaint charm to host Hollywood's elite. The main house itself bowed to its new role, serving as the hotel's welcoming center, a hub of hospitality complete with a restaurant and bar, a symbol of Nazimova's unwavering resolve. Thus, the Garden of Allah Hotel swiftly ascended to become the heart of Hollywood's bohemian rhapsody. Stars of the silver screen and literary giants alike flocked to its secluded bungalows and palms, drawn like moths to the incandescent allure of its black sea-shaped pool. Legends of the stage and screen, Ronald Reagan, Humphrey Bogart, Ginger Rogers, Marlene Dietrich, and the pen behind Gatsby, F. Scott Fitzgerald, whispered secrets and scripts beneath its eaves. Yet as the 1950s dawned, the spotlight began to dim on the once illustrious Garden of Allah. A carousel of proprietors had let the hotel waltz into a state of melancholic disrepair, and its final scene came when Lytton Savings and Loan stepped in, signaling the curtain call with a wrecking ball. A farewell soiree in 1959 saw the ghosts of Hollywood's past reborn for one last revel, costumes and all, as they bid adieu to an emblem of bygone splendor, soon to be upstaged by the progress of the future. Now, in an amusing twist of fate, Beverly Hills, known for its zip codes as much as its zip in real estate grandeur, once hosted the crown jewel of silent film era's extravagance, the stately manor of none other than Buster Keaton. Keaton, the stone-faced sultan of slapstick, found his castle nestled just a stone's throw from the Beverly Hills Hotel, staking his claim on the comedic and architectural map of Tinseltown. This Italianate villa, carved out of the rolling hills, set the gold standard for the celebrity cribs that followed, each vying for a slice of Beverly grandeur. In the 1920s, December 1924 to be exact, Keaton laid down a cool $300,000, a king's ransom at the time, to bring this 10,000-square-foot palatial pad to life. Architect Jean Verge, the maestro of Mediterranean revival, took a page from the old-world charm of Italy, envisioning a villa that echoed the rustic nobility of Tuscany and Lombardy with a pinch of Californian pizzazz. Keaton's abode, with its distinctive tower, seemed to pluck its asymmetrical lines straight from an Italian countryside, though the LA smog might have begged to differ. And this architectural marvel was more than mortar and marble. It was a playground for the era's elite. The Roman bath-inspired swimming pool, the tennis court that likely echoed with laughter and the clinking of cocktail glasses, the aviary and the kennels, it was all a backdrop for Keaton's legendary soirees. Chaplin, Valentino, Fairbanks Sr. and Pickford were just a few stars in the constellation of Hollywood royalty that frequented this comedic haven. As the lights dimmed on Keaton's career, so too did the fate of this old Hollywood haunt. The Italian villa is now but a memory, bulldozed in the altar of commerce. Yet, while the Italian villa has bid adieu, the legend of Buster Keaton's grand abode, and the era it represented, dances on, as timeless as the silent films that made its master a Hollywood immortal. Last on our list, in a sunny nook of Santa Monica, where the ocean's breath whispers of silver screen legends, the once storied abode of Marion Davies offered a window into the sumptuous lives of Hollywood royalty. Dreamt up by the architectural maestro Julia Morgan and realized between the Roaring Twenties and the early 30s, this splendid residence was a beacon of the era's extravagance. The Davies stronghold, a 5-acre beachfront expanse, played host to over 100 chambers and a swimming pool that would make Neptune himself envious. Its marble and grandiosity echoed the elegance often reserved for European monarchs. The silver screen's darling, Marion Davies, whose star shone brightly in the silent era and beyond, had a home that mirrored her stature in the celluloid heavens. The estate was the ne plus ultra of soirée scenes, luring the cream of Tinseltown's crop. Davies, with her magnetic hospitality, made her gatherings the stuff of legend. But as the gilded golden age began to wane by the mid-60s, the tides of fortune ebbed. Television's rise and the film industry's fiscal woes signalled the sunset of this storied period. And with it, the Davies manse's lustre dimmed. Fast forward to the 1990s, and the palatial pleasure dome was but a whisper of its former glory, ravaged by time. The mansion's final bow came with its demolition, a physical and metaphorical collapse of an epoch, the wrangling over its coastal plot and a preservation push that came too little, too late, led to its lamentable end. Yet, in 2009, a phoenix rose from the ashes of history, the Annenberg Community Beach House. This new haven melded historical homage with modern merriment, ensuring that the spirit of Davies and her resplendent domicile would echo in the halls of memory.